almost exactly 80 years ago in Tehran, during the Second World War, the first of three major great power conferences took place. Back then, it was Joseph Stalin representing the Soviet Union, Churchill, Great Britain, and FDR, the United States. And back then, Tehran was a turning point because it was the beginning of the de-Europeanization of global politics. Two new actors were emerging, the two new superpowers. Tehran 22 is certainly not as monumental a turning point, but part of a very important trend, and that trend is towards de-westernization and de-Americanization of Middle Eastern politics with much broader Eurasian and global ramifications. And by this, I do not mean that the Europeans and the United States are no longer going to play a role in the Middle East or in Eurasia. Of course they will. But there will not be a clear dominance, especially from the United States. And it's interesting because when you compare the rhetoric out of the joint statement of the three coming out of Tehran today to the way that Biden spoke about the United States coming back to the Middle East because it cannot handle a vacuum of power. When you're invited to someone's house and you call their house in a vacuum, you're essentially communicating to the people who are receiving you that they have no will, and without American, superiority and guidance, they cannot organize their affairs on their own. Well, it looks like in Tehran, the three sides that we saw today are at least moving in the direction of settling conflicts without direct American participation.
Multipolarism is here. It's de facto. I mean, Biden going to MBS, doing the fist bump, but getting nothing in return is a real signal. I mean, U.S. power is not the way it was. But, you know, this is not something that's very simple. Just having these conferences between powers that wish to settle regional disputes by themselves does not mean that the U.S. is going away. Support for the Kurds will continue, especially as it becomes more hardened, in the sense that they have at least two hardened adversaries, Iran and Russia, on one side, and they're trying to convince Erdogan that he should be on the U.S. side. So this kind of political football, this proxy wars, fortunately, with bloodshed, will continue.
The summit in Tehran is sending a very clear message to the United States. Iran, Turkey, and Russia wish to work together no matter what the U.S. does or what America's policies are. Russia, Turkey, and Iran are important international players. By hosting this summit, Iran wants to show that it has the strategic options to defeat the U.S. sanctions, even if the JCPOA is going to die. It's possible that the nuclear deal will die in the near future. So Iran is positioning itself against the West by strengthening relations with Russia and China.